Hey everyone, welcome to ZEN and TECH, where we focus on centering your inner geek and using technology to help you deal with the stresses of your connected life. I'm Rene, and your host for the show is Georgia. Before we begin, I just want to remind you that while Georgia is a therapist, she's not your therapist. Everything said or implied in this episode is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and shouldn't be taken in any way as a replacement for personal, professional care. Georgia, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Rene?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. So, Georgia, what is our topic for tonight?
Our topic is raising children with healthy self-esteem.
Okay, so we've touched on self-esteem before, but it's been a while. So can you just refresh my memory? What is self-esteem exactly?
Self-esteem is your feeling on yourself. So positive self-esteem means that you feel good about yourself, you believe in yourself. And having negative self-esteem or low self-esteem means that you don't believe in yourself, you don't feel competent.
Now, is this
it's not easy to deal with things?
Is this stuff that, like arrogance versus shyness, or nervousness versus, bravado? Is that what we're talking about, or is it something different?
It's a little bit different. It is your own feeling of goodness towards yourself. If you are competent, if you are worthy, if you are deserving, if you're able to handle many different situations.
Okay,
so many different personality types would have different self-esteem, and you might even have self-esteem in certain areas versus other areas. You might have a lot of self-esteem in one area where you're very good in, but not a great global self-esteem.
Okay, so there's a general self-esteem that you have about yourself in totality, and then different areas might bring out different levels of that self-esteem.
Right. What we want to build is an intrinsic self-esteem, whereas extrinsic self-esteem means a self-esteem outside of yourself that you need to be constantly refed.
It's dependent, right?
Good. Exactly. And what we want to build is a healthy internal self-esteem that even when the chips are down, you still feel that, you know what, I can handle myself and I'm still a good person.
So is there a difference when you talk about children versus adults in self-esteem?
Well, the difference is in that children develop usually when children are very young, they feel good about themselves. And around grade 2 and 3, they start to evaluate, am I a good person? Am I worthy? And take a look at other children around them. And parenting and the manner in which you parent can severely affect your own child's self-esteem, feeling of self-worth, and the manner in which they're going to be able to deal in the world.
Is this, can I bring up the old canard of nature versus nurture? Are you born with a certain level of self-esteem, or does what happens to you in childhood influence that?
Well, that's a huge question and probably a show in and of itself. But depending on your own personality traits, and if you are a positive, optimistic, or pessimistic person, that will affect your own feelings of self-esteem. Also, the manner in which you deal with your own ego and how you can relate to the world. People that are optimistic and maybe a little bit less realistic about the manner in which they behave have often higher levels of self-esteem than people that are more pessimistic and perhaps even more realistic to their own judgment on the way that they deal with life. So it's not a simple answer.
So I guess I'm getting all my dumb questions out first. Why is self-esteem important, or good self-esteem important for that matter?
It will be what keeps you up when the chips are down. When you feel that you can, if you have very little self-esteem, if you've had a lot of bad things happen in a row, it depletes your energy levels of how you feel about yourself. After a while of having a lot of difficulty in your life or difficult situations, you start saying, you know what, I'm no longer a worthy person. Your self-esteem goes down, and then your manner in able to cope with difficult situations also goes down. And then your own feeling of happiness with who you are as a person and worth and ability to go out and do things that are risky, that you're not sure of, that are outside of your comfort zone also decrease. So having healthy self-esteem, though it is the cliche word of these days, is very important.
Well, cliches are sometimes become cliches because they're true, right?
They do, and I think that it is important. I will be straight up honest, it was what my thesis was on. So I did really enjoy discussing it. And I remember one of my teachers, I was asking them, how do you actually build up someone's self-esteem? And it was a psychology class, and he didn't know. He wasn't able to give me a proper answer. And then I was like, okay, there's something up when people don't know how to deal with this and they're teaching other people that are going to become psychologists as well. So,
All right, so let's get into it then. Children and self-esteem, Georgia. What do we need to know?
wow, it is a huge subject. The manner in which you will raise your children will be dependent. And I think that there was a time and a certain culture of people long ago where they were very, very hard on kids. And um, the baby boomer generation, and whatever you did had to be amazing in order to get any praise. Now, what's happened in our society is that we have the pendulum has swung all the way to the other side. And so now, no matter what, and I see this happen all the time, my child will draw a line on a piece of paper and bring it to one of my friends, and they'll be like, wow, that was amazing. What is happening now? We think that we're building self-esteem, that we're making the child feel good. But what's really happening is we're lying to them. We're building a false sense of self-esteem. And then when they go into school and they draw this same line or they tell this same joke that
Or
is
they
not
go on
funny,
American Idol and sing.
exactly, expecting that people will be in awe as their parents were. And then they go on and they're like, oh, you are horrible, get off the stage. Or, they go to the teacher with this masterpiece that their parent says, you are the next Leonardo da Vinci. And then they bring it to the teacher and the teacher's like, yeah, go back to your seat. And then they're like, their bubble bursts because they have no realistic expectations of their level of competency versus the world.
You
And
basically
that's
set them
very
up.
earth-shattering. Yes, you've set them up for failure by trying
Yeah.
to not bust them down too difficultly. What we want to have a healthy medium in between.
A balance.
A balance. And there's certain things that can help your child build a honest, self-reflective thought. So it doesn't mean be horribly harsh on your child, but you could say, okay, thanks, or be honest. Say, you know what, I really like the way that, the picture might not be fabulously amazing for what your child can do. You could say, I love the way that you used color and shading in this picture. Be authentic, be genuine, because eventually your child is going to be using your own reflection onto their own internal light of how good they are. So you want to make sure that they're realistic expectations of their own abilities.
Is this age dependent? So, for example, if a 3-year-old scribbles something with a crayon and asks me if it's beautiful, do I give a different answer than if a 6-year-old asks me? Like, at what level do I start critiquing as opposed to encouraging?
You want to be honest at every single age and be age appropriate. So you want to encourage them. What we want is encourage resilience.
Okay.
Encourage them to, it's not just because they did the picture on the first shot, but teach them that if you keep on trying, you will get better. And you want to massage those type of traits out of your children, that they can keep at it. And if they really want to get good at something, that practice will help them. Another thing that's really important is that they don't have to get it, that thought of, I want you to be perfect, I want to drive you, you have to be involved in 6 or 7 different classes, and they all have to be at the top of the level, and you have 1.5-year-olds that are joining gymnastics to try to get a leg up. We are driving our children also for this fear of failure, that failure is a horrible thing, and they have to master a skill and be exceptionally good at it, instead of learning that, as long as you keep on trying, you do something that you enjoy, you'll get better at it.
Sometimes because we failed, right?
It might be because we failed, and maybe our parents didn't encourage us enough, and then we, of course, do the opposite.
Overcompensate.
We want them to have every single opportunity for our children, which I understand, and it's very loving. But you're causing a lot of pressure on children. The amount of children that I see and young adults with anxiety issues and being frightened of the world is daunting, and it's crushing to them because they're expected to do amazing at things and to always be good and to do it for their parents.
So how do you achieve this balance? How do you not be overly critical or what's the opposite of overly critical? Overly praising? How do you how do you be honest with a child?
Well, you do exactly that. You tell what you think for their appropriate. They say a joke and it's a little bit funny, you can say it's funny. If they say the joke 6 times, well, and you laugh at 6 times, you are teaching them that repetition of the same joke is still hilarious. They're going to then go out into the schoolyard, try the same thing, and their friends are going to be like, can you please knock it off? This is the most annoying thing ever. And that's a huge hardship for them.
Yeah.
We unfortunately bubble wrap our children, so much so that we have protected them from life. They have no scabs, no skin. Many of the children, their feet have barely hit the floor. They've never even held a school bag on their own. How is your child going to learn to navigate life? It's almost cruel. It's like taking these bubble wrapped, and sometimes we call them helicopter parents, but you have these bubble wrapped children. It's almost like having a declawed house cat, and you keep it inside the house for most of its life, and then suddenly you just throw it out into the world. Yep. It's never seen the world. The world is a scary place. They're used to navigating nothing. And that's frightening. And the world is a scary place. So if you're teaching your child that the world is a scary place, stay next to me. Oh my God, don't go there. Take a look over here. Come back here. You're too far. Be careful of that. What are you really saying to them? Two things. One, the world is really dangerous. Two, I don't believe in you.
So that's both sides, right? So you either bubble wrap them or you make them terrified. Neither of those are the happy medium.
Well, by bubble wrapping, that you are making them terrified is really what I meant, is that you are keeping them so safe that they don't learn to get those little bumps and bruises and scabs. So you'll end up with children that will not understand what it's like to fail, and that failure is okay. And failure's not just okay, it's important. It's something that's necessary for your own development, and it's expected.
Yeah.
Another thing that we can go through is that, not only is failure important, but that we always tell our children that they're so smart, they're amazing. It's almost this being special and gifted, and you say, how amazing, you're smart. It's lifting the bar so high that they don't expect average. Average is a failure to them. And the perfectionistic parent that tries to breed a perfectionistic child, it's so high that the child has to jump that often they will just quit. And you don't want to have that for your child, to be scared of making a mistake, because that's what life is about. And you would much rather your child make a mistake at 5 or 10 than to learn to make mistakes on huge things at 24 and 25.
Yeah, you want to make sure that they do it while you're there to help them learn, rather than when they have to learn harshly on their own.
Yes. I often tell this story about I had my little 3-year-old running down this grassy knoll. So he's running down this grassy hill, and he's running as fast as he can. And he was encouraging the other girls to run with him. And the parents said, oh my God, don't run. You could fall down. And this wasn't concrete. This was grass, real grass, not turf. And I'm thinking, again, I have to bite my tongue, because it's not my job to parent other people's children, and that's not going to cause me any friends. But I felt like saying, what are you doing? How is a child going to learn how fast they can run and what they are capable of if you do not allow them to get their knees scraped up? What is so horrible about that? It is horrible having a child that is afraid to run, because how are you going to expect your child to then take that risk in the workforce or at school or try that project if they're afraid to fall down from a hill?
So let's say let's just assume that you've been, not of course anyone I'm talking to, let's say the other person is doing this wrong. How can they start to turn that around? How can they start to instill confidence and esteem in their children?
What you want to do is you want to give your child opportunities to take responsibility. And here we go, parents. And this one's hard for me too, is let them make mistakes. And I'm often at fault of this error as well, is that I will see my child doing something, say stacking cups so that they can carry them into another room. And I'll see it and I'll know that they're not doing it as efficiently as they could. And I will be wanting to say to them, you know what, you should put them all together in one pile and then you can make one trip. Now, you would think that you're doing them a favor by saying that. But really, what are you doing to them? You're not letting them learn to problem solve. So give your child opportunities to problem solve, to make mistakes, to spill something, and then let them clean it up. Take responsibility for their own actions. Those are gifts. You are teaching your child that you believe in them, that you trust them, that if they make a mistake and spill the milk while they're pouring it, that's okay. You'll learn to do it better. And you can even say, do you think that there's another way that you could do that? But let them figure it out. Don't try to give your child the answers. Don't try to catch them before they fall. Of course, if they're going to break something, please don't send me all the emails. I understand. But metaphorically
contextually sensitive.
Yes. And even sometimes fall. If a child doesn't know how high they can jump, well, then they have no idea of what their own abilities are and what are their own limitations. Those are gifts to our children, and that's what will help them become successful and strong. Your one job as a parent is to teach your child to navigate the world and feel confident and believe in themselves for that.
All right. So when you say let them fail, is that just restrain yourself? Is that a good way to start? Is like if you see them teeter tottering, just and you want to intervene, just take a minute, do your breathing, pause, let them try.
Their own belief, what you say to your child will become their own inner voice. So if you say to them, you did great, you can get up and be there still. Don't be the abandoning parent either and just say, well, figure it out for yourself.
Yeah.
If they need your help, they'll ask for it. But believe that they will know how to get up themselves. There's so many parents that I see on the playground and their child falls down off the swing, and right away you see the parent get up, rush over, pick them back up, dust them off, tell them, oh my God, are you okay? And how are you doing that? What are you saying to your child? They can't even get off of the swing, fall down, deal with it. If they're upset, they can come to you as well and say, it's okay. You did good. Get back up. You're all right. And then they'll believe, okay, I'm all right. And not only that, my parent believes in me.
So what do you do if you are doing these sorts of things, but you still have a feeling that your child doesn't have self-esteem or doesn't have confidence?
You want to start by giving them small tasks, things that are important to the household. So chores are really important. A lot of parents don't believe in that anymore. They consider it slave labor or something else that's harsh. It's teaching the child, one, empathy, to understand what are the difficulties and what it takes to raise a household. Two, inclusiveness. I trust you to help the household and you're important to what the household happens. And then learning skills. They will learn how to deal with certain tasks and how to manage responsibility. I also think that it's good to have your child learn the problem solving. So ask them for help with something. You know what? I have all these Tupperware pieces. How could we put them into this drawer so that they would all fit? Give them little tiny, riddles, puzzles that they have to find out. Well, put something out, make a game of it, and let them learn to problem solve for what they're doing for that. It's also a lot of fun for you and a great bonding experience.
Is it trite to say don't let them win, let them learn how to win?
There's something else that I want to mention as you say, let them win, but this new way that we're dealing with things, which is everyone gets a medal.
Yeah.
I'm so against this as a principal. I understand why it's done because they don't want anyone to feel bad for themselves. But I also think that the world is not like that. And I don't want my child to learn at 18 that, they don't all get a medal and there are some people that will do better, and that's okay. So I don't believe in letting my child win at a game. I'm not going to let them win just so that they feel better about themselves. I want to teach them that, you know what? Some people have to lose, some people win, and both are valid. As long as you try, that's okay. So I know this is a little bit not what you were asking, but I don't think that that's doing our children any good. Also, the not being able to play dodgeball and other sports, and even minor bullying is not a horrible thing. It teaches your children how to problem solve. And again, when they go into the workforce, you're going to have people that will try to pick on your child as a young adult. And at least if they've gotten some minor bullying or teasing from their brothers and sisters, I'm not talking about something horrific. I'm not talking about something harsh, but it teaches them to grow a little bit of skin, and they won't have, as I had one child that couldn't join even a club because the teacher was a little bit loud and that he would break down and cry because his parents never yelled in the household. There is definitely a happy medium. You never ever yell. You always talk to them. You're not going to deal with anything, and you don't want to be screaming your brains out and being excessively harsh. There's a mid ground a happy medium that you want to do that will give your child the understanding that the world is not going to hurt them. They can handle it. If someone in the schoolyard calls them a name, they're not going to come home destroyed. And that's what happens. They come home and they are absolutely destroyed because they don't know how to navigate the world.
You've spoken about that before. You've spoken about the bubble and how some things make the bubble smaller, and how when you don't do something, you start to be able to do less and less over time.
You don't want to have your child avoid conflict. You want your child to be able to stand up for themselves, that other people can disagree, and that's okay. And one of the most important things is not everyone is going to like them, and not everyone has to. That other people are available to deal with that. And how would you deal with it? And you can role play it. Say, well, what would happen if this way? You can use toys, you can use dolls. And even if you're dealing with a teenager, you can say, well, what would you say back to this? They could use humor. They could, again, we're not dealing with bullying in this episode, but they can say something back to them. They could talk to someone about it. They could choose to withdraw and do a different activity. There's other modes to deal with it than feeling crushed. And that's what you don't want to have, is a child that's going to feel crushed by the world.
Now, some people use external. They don't use the house. Like, they feel like if their kid doesn't have self-esteem, you teach them karate or you put them in boot camp or something. Is that, again, an example of extremes, or is that a useful tool?
I love martial arts. I'm a martial artist myself, and I think that it is a good thing to learn if you can teach your child restraint and when to use it. I don't think there's anything wrong with knowing how to protect yourself and defend. And I think that it also teaches a wonderful skill of discipline. It teaches respect. It teaches how to take care of dangerous situations and makes them feel very empowered. So I love martial arts. And I think that, yes, if your child is being physically bullied, I'll say it straight out. Yes, learning for them to say, you know what, I can fight back if I choose to, and when it is appropriate. I think that's a good thing. I would not want to have my own child, and I know this goes a little bit against our culture right now, but I would hate to have your child, because once your child is named as a victim, they will be victimized all through their school year, and that's what happens when a child will maybe become their self-esteem goes so low that they could become depressed and suicidal or have uncontrollable rage, and I don't want to have that happen to any child.
So I guess the only concern I have, and it's one we've raised before, is people don't always see things in themselves. For example, if you're overprotective, you don't always see that you're overprotective. You can, even watch it on TV. I can't imagine ever being like that. And lo and behold, you're like that. So what are some of the things that you can do to identify this trait so that you can address it?
It is a hard thing to see your own. We all have our own blind spots. So hopefully you have a good set of friends that you can trust and other family members that can say, you know what, this is the way that I do it. You want to have an open mind. Not everyone has all of the answers, myself included. You want to always evolve and see what's happening with your child. Depending on which way your child is, you might have different manners of dealing with them. So if you have a very laid back child, you may have a completely different strategy than a child that is overactive, exceptionally hyper, and very aggressive. And maybe martial arts or a different training would not be appropriate for them. And your parenting skills would have to be adaptive to that. So one style of parenting is not going to work for all children. You want to, but it's sometimes hard to self-monitor. You might not know. If your child is having problems, change the skills that you're using. And be honest to say, you know what, I might have made a mistake. And that's all right for this type of child. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you, but you might not want to learn new tools. So if someone says, you know what, that's not okay, you might want to take a look at that. Or if your child is suddenly, effects of low self-esteem, if the child is suddenly not eating or withdrawing from activities or not trying things or crying or not being able to speak and open up, those are also clues that your child may be dealing with a self-esteem issue, and you might need to deal with some different ways of parenting.
And so let's say that your spouse or your partner is exhibiting these things and you can see that they're overprotective, or maybe they're going the other way and they're a little bit overly abusive, and that's affecting the confidence level of the child. How do you address it with them?
Parents should always discuss parenting and be on the same page. It is difficult. It's one of the most important things we do. We don't get a manual for that. So you want to discuss it open in a time when your spouse is feeling good. You don't want to deal it when they made a mistake. They're going to feel horrible. If you attack them, they're going to be defensive. It's not the way to discuss something. But after the effect, or even if, you can tag them out. So if you see that your partner is having a hard time, you say, you know what, let me take over for that. And have an understanding that means, you know what, you might have had a stressful day and you're not going to be the best person to deal with the situation right now. Let me help you. Mm-hmm. I'll take over this part. And as partnership, we'll deal with this a little bit better.
All right, Georgia. So do you have any homework for this episode?
Well, I would love for you to, if you have children or if you have a young adult that you're dealing with, to give them some problem-solving skills and give them some responsibilities in the home. Also, chores are a fabulous way to build up confidence and self esteem. It's something that's appreciated by other members of the household and tells them that you're an important contributing member. So, those are some of the easiest ways to build up your child's confidence. Also, if they're having excessive problems with self esteem, have them learn a new skill so they could do juggling or magic or a martial art or card tricks or a joke. Teach them new skills and how to manage their life, and it'll make them feel better.
And when do you know that you have to take them to see somebody, to talk about the problem or to get help with dealing with it?
If your child is withdrawn, if they're having problems dealing with, I always say that when do you need to come in to see someone? It's when you or your child are having troubles managing day-to-day life.
Okay.
If you're not coping and you feel like you're drowning, go see someone that's a specialist in this area and have them help you. It can be an amazing experience. You want someone that's non-judgmental, that's caring, and that knows a lot about dealing with children and that matches with your personality type. It's kind of like dating. You want to have a therapist that you trust. If you don't trust them and you don't like the person in the manner in which they speak to you, then you should find someone else.
Okay. So just to kind of put a cap on it, then you want to start building up. You want to make sure you don't interfere and let your child experience a little bit of life at an age-appropriate level. You want to give them responsibilities around the house so they can feel like a productive contributing member. And you want to look for signs that it's becoming a problem. And if it becomes a serious enough problem to affect their day-to-day life, you want to get some help for them. And it's the same thing, for example, right? If you cut yourself, you're going to put a Band-Aid on. So if you have a problem, you're going to want to address it.
Right, and certain hardships in life are okay. You do not want to protect your child from every bump and bruise in their own life. So let them experience it, let them live, and trust that they can handle it. Give them a couple of dollars, let them go around the dollar store, and stop hovering. Let them go a little bit further away from you. Let your child walk and learn how to walk across the street without holding your hand. What would you do? That's a scary one, but that builds trust in your child, and you can learn problem-solving skills. How do you know if a car is coming?
Yeah, so you want to always age appropriate, always context sensitive, but you want to teach them how to live life, because if they are dependent on you for everything, the minute you're not there, that's when something will go wrong.
Exactly, and you don't want them to think there's danger around every single corner. Yeah. It will make them scared. It will make them anxious, and they won't be able to manage larger real life dangers.
If they can't survive without you, they won't survive without you.
Right.
Georgia, where can we find out more about you?
Oh, I'll just say one more thing. You are trying to teach them to become independent, not dependent upon you. So if you're doing all the problem solving for your child, they're never going to learn that on their own. Their brains develop through use. If they're not problem solving and you're fixing their problems and telling them who they should be dating and where they should be going, doing their homework for them, remembering their homework, putting it in the school bag, carrying the school bag, then they're not going to learn that skill on their own. You use parts of your brain to make them become stronger.
You're cheating them out of life.
You are. You're doing them a huge disservice.
All right, Georgia, where can we find out more about you?
You can find me on the website, www.zenandtech.tv, and of course on Twitter, @GeorgiaTIPB.
And you're doing some talking, some public speaking now, some corporate gigs?
That I am. So if you are interested in having us come and give a chat, please send me an email or a tweet and get in touch.
Perfect. And you can find me at Rene Ritchie. You can find both of us at Zen and Tech. You can email us at podcast@zenandtech, or just leave a comment on the show when it goes live. For all of our shows, go to mobilenations.com/shows. And I want to thank you, Georgia, for taking the time to, again, address such an important topic. And I want to thank our chat room, because they are the absolute best community online.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next time.
Next time it is.
Good night, everybody.